Hey guys, this is Domingo. I'm bringing you a very exciting interview here. Somebody I actually look up to because of one, we're both Hispanic, but what we've gone through to accomplish what we've done is just amazing, actually. But his story is so exciting because of one direction that he went through, the education that he pursued, and the different route that he actually went, which is completely different from his education. And so, I'm trying to bring you these interviews on a monthly basis so that you can kind of see other individuals' story and how it may actually relate to you. So, Ferny, thank you so much for being on for today.
Yeah, the pleasure being here, man. Thanks for having me.
Recently, Ferny and I and a small group of individuals had a little outing out in Utah in Park City, where we conquered a mountain. Well, mine was a bunny hill, but it was a tall hill, so it was considered a mountain. But it was a lot of fun, and so we caught up then, and so I really appreciate anytime having this one-on-one with you is always a very powerful meeting for me.
I'm saying here, man, I've learned so much from you, just being around you, and even just from what you've shared with our mutual friend Tim Irway. And so I've been learning about you, from you, through him, as well as in person from you.
Well, this one's about you. So this is going to drive some questions, and we're going to get to know you. And you got your tissue boxes next to you, right? You're good to go.
Oh yeah, I'm good, man.
Okay. So let's drive this. Let's start this out a little bit about you, right? So, tell us a little bit about your history, a little bit about your education and how you were brought up. What kind of environment did you have?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm Mexican American. Both my parents are immigrants from Mexico. I was born in East LA, just like the movie with Cheech. So I grew up in a Mexican household and a Latino environment, and in the neighborhood I grew up in. It wasn't the nicest of neighborhoods, but our parents made it work. I mean, I grew up, fortunately. That's where some of the other families who grew up in poor neighborhoods, they tend to have a lot of trouble inside the family as well. And fortunately for me, that wasn't the case. I had very loving parents, and I had a very happy childhood. And so you could say I was brought up right, if there is a right way. And because obviously my parents did something right, because I did very well in school. I was that nerd that stood out among all the other people that could care less about being there at school. And primarily I was motivated by not wanting to disappoint my parents and teachers. That was my primary motivation. It wasn't really selfish. It was just like, I don't want to disappoint people who I care about. And I did really well. And long story short, I ended up going to MIT for my college education. And oddly enough, I was just telling the story last night to somebody. I actually, growing up, I didn't know what MIT was. I didn't even know what MIT was, through high school. I actually learned about what MIT was because they actually sent me some information in the mail, just like they do with a lot of high school kids who are about to go to college. And I didn't know what it was. I picked it up and I showed it my girlfriend then. I said, hey, I got this booklet from this place called MIT. And her response at the time, this is my girlfriend, remember, was, oh, MIT, that's, my brother applied there and he didn't get in. And he's the smartest guy I know, so you probably won't get in. So, and so I was like, okay. So I didn't get mad or anything. I just kind of quietly okay. And I basically filled out the application, and the rest is history. And was accepted to this school. And by the time I got the acceptance, I pretty much knew what a big deal it was. It was kind of a clue when it's the only school that requires an interview, as part of the application. And so I went off to MIT and had basically the dream education that everyone would hope for. Although while I was there, I realized that I just wasn't happy doing what I was doing there from an educational standpoint. I had the time of my life. I met the smartest and most brilliant people in the world who are still my friends. If I told you what some of them do, you'd be like, your jaws would drop. And you probably know who some of them are. But the point is, I had the time of my life there from a personal standpoint, but educationally, I wasn't happy. In fact, I hardly ever went to class because it's like there were no parents or teachers there that I was close enough to that to disappoint anymore. So that really is when I realized that, you know, what actually motivates me, what's actually going to light a fire under my ass and make me want to, you know, do something. And that was the first clue. At first I thought there was something wrong with me where I wasn't motivated to, you know, be very passionate about engineering and the sciences, which is what I studied there. But pretty much, you know, I pushed through and everything there, and I graduated with a B plus average, even though I never went to class. Maybe went to like less than 10% of my classes, and would just like cram and study out of the book, and you know, did well enough to graduate. But that was kind of like the first clue where I realized that maybe this life wasn't for me. I went to work in the aerospace industry, and as soon as I went to work in corporate America, especially in the aerospace industry, you know, I realized it wasn't for me. Like within 2 days, I told myself, you're not going to do this for the rest of your life. You got to figure out something else. And that's what I did for about 2.5 years. And after 2.5 years, I actually got started in the network marketing industry. Somebody introduced me to an opportunity. And for the next 2.5 years, that led me down a rabbit hole where I went from network marketing and eventually finding the online space, where there were a lot of people that were building network marketing business online. And that's where I transitioned from being a network marketer with, you know, moderate to little success to an internet marketer who eventually, you know, grew a big business. And I've generated, my companies have generated millions of dollars online. And I'm very proud of that. I was able to quit my job within 2 years of going online, produced my, you know, built my first 7-figure company within 4 years, and kept growing from there. And now I'm the chief marketing officer and partner in Elite Marketing Pro, which is a community of entrepreneurs that we train and mentor and coach on building online businesses, and also helping them with existing businesses, help them with marketing and advertising on the internet. And so that's what we're devoted to doing now, is helping other people if they want to essentially achieve and follow a similar path to what I did. We help them, and if they already have existing businesses, help them take their businesses to the next level into 6 figures, 7 figures, and even 8 figures. So that's my story in a nutshell.
I think the interview is over. You covered everything. No.
Yeah, I mean, I left out the stuff that will make you cry and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. You know, that's actually the first time I've actually heard that. I knew a lot about you because, you know, we've met in person, and then I saw you on stages with No Excuses, and, you know, through our mutual friend TJ, you know, so we got a chance to hang out and everything. But let me tell you, that story is so powerful in many ways. I want to break it down some.
Sure.
Because I think as people are listening to the story, as I was, as amazed on how you took a road to where you're at now. And it sounds all great, but I guarantee there's a lot of frustration throughout that entire process.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I want to break it down to ask you a question. Coming from a minority family, you know, driven, you know, my dad is Mexican American as well. And, you know, his work ethic is unbelievable. You know, he went from picking the tomatoes and strawberries in the field, being a one of 16 children. My grandmother stands 4'11" tall, you know, and being one of the oldest of the 16, and then driving and working the fields. And then when he got old enough, got drafted into the Army. And then his work ethic from there just really it took off, being a top construction worker, and then working for the post office for 30 years and retiring top honors. You know, when I look at that history, that influenced me a lot as far as my work ethic and the ability to not give up. And because I remember subconsciously him working so hard to provide. So I share that because I wanted to, you know, from your standpoint, how much did your parents actually influence you to who you are now? Or at least through that entire process? If you had to look back, how much did it influence? Because throughout the process, we probably didn't recognize it. But now, if you look back, share a little bit about that.
Yeah, it absolutely did. I mean, my dad worked at you could say this, at One Day Paint and Body in one of their warehouses, lugging paint around and driving a forklift. At one point, he was a driver, but that became too stressful, so he just worked in the warehouse, manual labor for 12 hours a day. And we're barely, actually, if you looked at our income, we're basically at the poverty line at the time, or in terms of the income that was being brought in. And my mom didn't work; she took care of us, and that's the way it was. We never felt like we were poor, but that's essentially where we're at. My mom did a brilliant job of cutting coupons and saving, and it was something that didn't go unnoticed for my father. One thing I did notice, however, is when it was time for my dad to pay his bills, like he'd just sit down and basically just take out his briefcase and just pay his bills, and you can tell like what a master he was at stretching every single dollar. But also there were clues throughout my childhood, and later on I would learn that it was actually extremely stressful for him. And so it was, for me, it was something I didn't want to go through. It was like, somehow at some point I started viewing my life as something that would justify that level of stress in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually, for me, it was like, it would be a disgrace if and that's partly what motivated me as an entrepreneur. It would be disgraceful if even with an education, even as an engineer, if I ended up doing something I did not enjoy doing from a job perspective as a career, if I did not enjoy doing it, if I felt like I was wasting my time at a job I didn't like, whether it was paying me a little or a lot, I felt like I was dishonoring the sacrifice that they made. Because essentially, our parents, especially with immigrants, not just Mexican, any immigrants, our parents tend to be the ones that work those hard jobs in hopes that their kids have, a brighter future where they don't have to work those hard jobs. And unfortunately, in a lot of immigrant families, especially our Latinos, we see that a lot of them tend to end up doing exactly what their parents did. Their parents were mechanic, they're a mechanic. Their parents were construction worker, they're a construction worker. And for me, that made no sense because the limit, as an immigrant, you're poor, you don't speak English. It's like opportunities are limitless. But once you're here, you have the education that you have here. You can speak English. You can you're American. And, the sky's the limit. And it just made no sense to me why I personally would want to settle for anything not less than what my parents, not even equivalent. I needed to basically show that I could just, take off and do something that I truly enjoy and love in order to kind of justify their sacrifice, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And yeah, I totally get it. And then the thing is, and this goes for anyone, I guess, if you look at the way your parents have influenced you, it is strong. No matter what your relationship with your parents are, no matter what it is, good or bad, they've influenced you one way or another. And I strongly recommend people that I meet, individuals, to recognize that, and build from it, because there's so much, if you can understand who you are and where you came from, there's so much more you can do when you move forward. And I do believe not recognizing a lot of that sometimes can hold you back. And so that's, to me, your story is very powerful in many ways because I can relate to it. I can relate to it from growing up from an immigrant family. My dad was an immigrant with a 6th grade education, and that's it. And he actually went and started college because he wanted more for us, but they kicked him out of college because he didn't have a high school diploma. So, so he's like, what's that? So when you look at that, it's an interesting path that we follow from our family. And man, I think that's powerful. One of the questions I actually have for you, but I think you answered it beautifully, is what drives you as an entrepreneur. But obviously, I think a lot of that, what you just said, just covers that. But is there anything else that drives you, just from an entrepreneur standpoint, outside of family?
I mean, that one's a big one in terms of being somebody that would settle, because there's a lot of people that would have settled for what I had. as an engineer in the aerospace industry. I mean, I had, you know, top secret clearances, working on stuff for the government. You know, to most people, that's like, wow, that's a great success. You're working on important things for the military and the government. And but I wasn't happy with what, you know, and this is what I was talking about when I was at MIT. I didn't realize why I wasn't happy there from an educational standpoint, and which is why I never went to class. And it was just, I had no passion for engineering. I mean, I did it, I was good at it, and I pushed through it, and I graduated, because I'm also that type of person. I'm not a person that believes in quitting in the middle of something, even if you don't like doing it. You start it, you finish it. That's kind of like my philosophy. So that's what I did. I started my MIT education and I finished it. But you know, kind of listening to that voice and saying, you're not happy, you need to do something about this, was important. And it wasn't until I had satisfaction that I can truly say that you know, the sacrifices that my parents made, you know, growing up were now you know, paid back.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it made no sense whether I was making more money. It made no sense to be, you know, at one point while I was working as an engineer, I was still living paycheck to paycheck because I was so miserable, you know, during those 8 hours at work, that I needed to justify it somehow. So I'd go out and spend money and party and have a great time, you know, at night. And then I'd have no money, you know, after a couple of weeks. And so I was still living paycheck to paycheck for a different reason than obviously my parents, but it was still that paycheck to paycheck cycle. And a lot of people, we overstretch ourselves and live paycheck to paycheck, even if we're making six figures, multiple six figures. And so just that, you know, I was essentially kind of reliving you know, my parents' situation in a certain respect. And I wasn't happy doing that. So that's what drives me there. Now what drives me is helping other people, you know, just, you know, when I got started in this industry, you know, I actually got started with the exact same community I'm now a partner and owner of now. And when I started, I found online marketing, and I was like, this is awesome. And early on, one of my goals was, I want to be the owner of an affiliate system and a community similar to this one, like the one I found. And that was kind of something that I thought, and I kind of just worked towards achieving that. Little did I know that not only would I achieve that goal, I would actually become the owner of the exact same system that got me my start and my education with online marketing and advertising and entrepreneurship. And so that was pretty cool. And what drives me now, and the reason I wanted to have that community, was because I wanted to impact the lives of other people. I wanted to basically show people, now internet marketing and making a living on the internet is not easy, but it's not as hard as what my parents did. It's certainly not as hard as what I did at MIT. It's not as hard as, you know, working 40 years in the aerospace industry. So it's nowhere near as hard, but it's still, you know, difficult. You have to devote time to it, and you have to respect the skills that you're learning as actual career skills. And that's what people in the online space often don't get, is they think, oh, just show me the formula and you know, show me how to make money. And no, you have to respect it like a real skill set that you need to acquire, just like you would learn anything else.
Yeah.
Through practice and trial and error and all that stuff. And once you respect it, then you put the work in necessary without thinking about how hard it is.
Yeah.
And so because you've done it before, you've been to school, you've taken tests that were hard, and you made it through, and you studied for certain things, and you've done all that stuff before, but oftentimes it doesn't connect that you have to put the same type of effort into doing this, you know, the building online business part of it. But once you do that, then you actually stop thinking about how hard it is, and you just keep pushing yourself. And that's what I help people. That's what I love helping people discover, is like, once they start respecting the skills that they're learning, they become successful at them, and they find success, lives are changed. Mm-hmm. And I've been fortunate. I've had hundreds, if not thousands of students or people that have come through our systems and products that have been enormous successes, anywhere from 6 figures to 8 figures. And I'm very, very proud of that. And that's what drives me now from a personal standpoint, from an unselfish standpoint. You know, because I feel like I've fulfilled on what drove me before as regards to my parents, and now what drives me is just seeing other people succeed.
You know, that's fantastic, and that actually leads me to my next question, because I think, and you actually covered some of it as well. You know, I I'm a firm believer that there's a formula out there for everything. Okay, there is, and like you want to graduate, here's what you got to do. You know, there's a blueprint. People lay it out in front of you, and a lot of it you have to drive yourself. One of the questions I say, what drives you as an entrepreneur? Because it takes yourself to drive yourself through that formula or that blueprint to get to a certain level of success. But along the way, some people lose the fact that another way to help you is actually to have mentors and people to be part of masterminds and be part of groups. So what are your thoughts and feelings? What can you share about what, you know, mentorship, masterminds, coaches, to help people throughout their journey?
It's a requirement. Like, it's not an option. Very few people can kind of figure it out on their own. You need a mentor, especially if you're exploring a new area of life or a new area in your career, and it's all new to you. You can't learn it all on your own. You know, not everything's going to be laid out for you in written text or in a course or in a video. There's things that are in between the lines that you need to be able to see that oftentimes you can't see by just following the formula that was laid out for you in a book or a course. Mm-hmm. There's blind spots that you're going to run into that could potentially lead to a lot of trouble. And I'll give you an example of my personal story. So another part of a story that I kind of glossed over was the fact that for 2 years I struggled with internet marketing. So I'm this, you know, supposedly smart dude that went to MIT and an engineer and all this stuff, but I struggled with internet marketing, and I got myself into a lot of debt, trying to buy courses and learn new things and chasing shiny objects, you know, going from course to course and, you know, program to program. And before I knew it, I was like 60 grand in debt. I had already spent over $90,000. And it just happens like in a blink of an eye if you don't kind of keep tabs on it. But I was so, you know, motivated and driven that I didn't care. It's like, if this is going to help me get to where I wanted to go, I put the money down or put in a credit card, whatever. But I did a lot of that without mentorship. And it was like an unnecessary journey that I went through. It's my journey, and I paid that price, and I'll pay it again if I have to. But it's kind of an unnecessary journey. Now, this will cost you money. Mentorship will cost you money. But actually, the fact of the matter is mentorship actually saves you money and a lot of hardship in the long run. Yeah. And you know, after, you know, a couple years of spending all this money, I was faced with a decision where I was, you know, pretty much on the brink of going into bankruptcy. I not only do I pay my bills, I pay my mom's bills, I pay her mortgage, and so I was on the verge of losing her house. You know, not just my stuff, losing her things. And it was the house that my father had bought, you know, when many years ago when I was 7 years old. And so, you know, I was in a dire straits, but I wasn't going to give up. And so I was faced with a choice, because I was actually now finally offered a mentorship opportunity with a mentor who was not cheap. and you know, we got the offer to work with him directly. And at that point, I'm like, I'm done with courses. I'm done with going through this. I know a lot of this stuff already. Why is it not clicking? You know, I know it. You know, I can speak intelligently about this internet marketing stuff. Why isn't it resulting in, you know, money in my bank, or enough money in my bank? I was making some money, but nowhere near what I needed. Or, you know, the ROI wasn't there. And so the mentorship opportunity with my mentor was $60,000. And it was $60,000 that I did not have. And I had a business partner at the time. And we immediately called each other. And what we asked ourselves was not, should we do it? You know, we knew this mentor, we knew it would lead to incredible things. And we trusted him fully. And so, but it's his time. It's a full year of his time and effort to mentor us and help us and kind of just bypass all the BS. And what we asked ourselves was not should we do it, how? And so he's literally offering to mortgage his house. I'm, you know, essentially offering to do whatever I can from a debt standpoint. we're willing to go in even more debt in order to get access to this person who we deeply respected and we knew could help us personally. Fortunately, you know, what happened was he gave us an option to pay it in payments over the course of a year. So $5,000 over the course of a year. And we had one credit card that I think had a limit of about $7,000 or $8,000. Mm-hmm. And so we put the first payment on that credit card. And our goal every month was to work and earn enough money to pay off that credit card before the next payment came throughout that year. And here's the cool story. And that kind of just eliminated a lot of the clutter when we started working with him. And within 9 months, within 9 months of doing that, we had our first $700,000 month in our business.
Oh, wow.
And it was because it just eliminated everything. It gave us focus. It gave us a direction to move in. We ignored everything else. Now today, I hardly ever go through an info product. It's very rare that something is compelling enough where I actually want to study it. Because one, I have access to a lot of friends that I can just call up and say, hey, what are you doing here? But the other thing is I ignore most things that are out there, webinars and launches and all this stuff, because it has no relevance to what I'm doing. It doesn't contribute to the plan I've set for my business and myself. Mm-hmm. And if at any point any of that is of value, then yeah, maybe I'll look at it because it can contribute to helping me get to where I want to go faster. But I understand where I'm going. I understand how I'm getting there. So there's no shiny object thing doesn't happen anymore where I unnecessarily spend money on things.
Yeah.
I just, this past weekend, we invested in a mastermind with a friend of ours in the industry on traffic generation and lead generation through Facebook. And we made that investment we spent a day with him to help us to refine our strategy for marketing. We had made that investment and studied that stuff because it has directly relevant to what I'm doing in my business and trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
But otherwise, if it doesn't fit your strategy, then you don't do it. But before you can do that, you need to have a strategy. You need to have a plan. Mm-hmm. And a mentor is the only person that has been there and has achieved something. Therefore, they're probably the only person that's qualified to actually create a plan for you.
I love it. You know, and I love the fact that as we get started in entrepreneurship, we do get sidetracked a lot. You know, especially now the way social media goes. Every day you get a advertisement in your newsfeed for, hey, you know, how I made this much in this short period of time and how I made this. And there's 10 different ways to do it. And we end up buying 10 different courses when you can just really, and you sit back and say, wow, I would love to work with this one mentor, but I can't afford him. Well, you could have if you didn't buy these 10 other packages.
And at that point, you know, with my story, you know, that I was in that situation. It's like, I've already spent all this money on this other stuff, but there's this opportunity with this mentor. Yeah, I could have sat there and felt sorry for myself and said, oh, I wish I hadn't spent all this money on this other thing. But screw that, suck it up. Find a way to find the resources because you're going to need that mentorship.
Yeah.
Mentors save you money. They save you heartache. They save you potentially disastrous, pitfalls that you're going to run into in your business, you know, because they've been there. They've gone through it. There's a reason why most successful people have gone bankruptcy or been pretty close to it. It's because they made a lot of mistakes. They know what to avoid, mm-hmm. and they can help you avoid those issues. So if they help you avoid those issues, that means that your investment in them is going to be paying off no matter what. If it's a person you trust. Now, if it's somebody you don't know, that's just this random dude on the internet says he makes millions, but you don't know that for sure, then obviously you're going to want to do your due diligence. But for the most part, in our communities, share with your people, they know you, they trust you. And the difference between those that make it happen and those that don't is exactly what I just said right now. Do you sit there and feel sorry for yourself for the mistakes you made and all the debt you're in or whatever? Or do you find a way to make it happen to get access to the people you need to get access to in order to get to where you want to go? And in the long run, they will save you tons of money. They'll get you where you want to get faster, and you'll be wanting to pay them more money because of how fast they got you to where you wanted to be.
And I love the fact that you brought into it also your circle of influence. You know, you're literally one call away from knowledge that you need to get. You know, you can just pick up the phone and say, hey, TJ, hey, Vince, hey, Domingo, I need help with this one thing. So you're not, and having that circle of influence, that circle that you're involved with and your friends and mentors and mentees, the more, the more you go out, the more you network, the more you join masterminds, the more knowledge you gain, and the circle of influence actually grows bigger and bigger. And you're literally one phone call away from solving a small problem that you may have at that moment. And it really contributes a lot to the success that you have.
Well, with a mentor, you're also one call away from their circle of influence.
Yeah.
So if they don't have the answer, they can call somebody to get the answer. And I've done that many times with my mentorship clients, where I go, you know what, I don't know that, but I know someone who does. Hang on a second. And I immediately call that other person that they otherwise would not have access to unless they paid, tens of thousands of dollars to call up and spend a day with.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the value of a mentor is not just their help and their advice, it's their circle of influence, because they don't want to be in a position where they can't give you an answer to something, especially if you paid them money to do it. So they're going to call somebody up and say, hey, I got this problem, and get the answer for you.
I completely agree. I always like to share with my my friends and people who I communicate with that lessons learned help you continue moving forward. And so what was the biggest lesson, if you had to think back, what was the biggest lesson that you learned in 2015, and how did you learn from it, and how are you applying it this year?
Well, it's at a certain point when you're successful, let's say with an internet business or any business for that matter, but even an internet business, it's the transition from going to self-employed to business owner. And a lot of people are deluded into thinking that they're actually business owners when they're actually self-employed. And a lot of internet marketers are self-employed and they don't realize it. Yeah, they live the internet lifestyle. They can work from their home or from the beach or whatever, but they actually, their activity is directly tied to income. And if they stop working, they stop making money, like the hit by the bus test. If you're hit by the bus, you're going to stop making money. Even if, making money on the internet is easy or whatever. And so, and it was late 2014 and into 2015, late 2014, when, pretty much I was in my business before I became a partner and owner in Elite Marketing Pro. I was just overworked. I was like pretty much pulling the entire wagon. I was, wearing a lot of hats in my company. We have a 7-figure company, just barely 7-figure business, but it's not growing, and we're pretty much stagnant because it can't grow beyond my ability to work. Yeah. And so even though we have a lot of online systems and certain levels of automation, and we have employees and whatever, things weren't structured in a way, and we didn't have the staff set up in a way where it gave me leverage to be able to walk away and know that things are still running. And that was the biggest test. The biggest lesson for me was the value of being able to scale in a business, and the value of systems and processes where you're now documenting activities that happen in your business, and you have people that are designated with the responsibilities of different aspects of your business. But not only do they have the responsibilities, they also have to document what it is that they do, how they do certain things, so that if that person should ever need to go, get fired, quit, whatever, that another person could fill the role, and what they were doing is essentially documented, and everything is very systematized. Mm-hmm. And so that's coming into Elite Marketing Pro, which already had a lot of those components when I became a partner in it. It was just like night and day versus how hard I was working for the money here versus how hard I was working for it here. And it gave me a level of peace where I knew certain things were taken care of. Mm-hmm. I wasn't responsible for all the things in the business. I wasn't even thinking about a lot of things in the business. And I was able to focus on my primary responsibilities as a business owner and chief marketing officer, with more clarity and with less stress, without having to worry about all these other things that had nothing to do with marketing. Yeah. Maybe some of those things were technical. Some of those things had to do with customer support, whatever it is. So if you're listening to this call right now and you're multiple 6-figure earner in your business, or even $1 million producer, but you're just feeling overwhelmed and overworked and feeling like you've plateaued and you can't scale, well, that's probably because you need to now shift to this other paradigm
Mm-hmm.
as a business owner, and stop thinking that you're a business owner, you're self-employed, and get the help you need in order to be able to scale and restructure your business.
Completely agree. Completely. And that's a great lesson because it is a major shift, not only mindset, but responsibility, setting up a system and following the process, and then realizing that and the big word is your responsibility is bigger, but by building a team and duplicating yourself allows you to grow. And that's really the bottleneck that most entrepreneurs have, is they're the bottleneck. They don't realize, they feel like they can conquer the world, but at the end of the day, you can't conquer it by yourself. No one conquers the world with one person army. They have to be able to have the systems in place and be able to command where you need to command, and be able to have different strategies to handle different situations. It's just the way it works. And so I completely agree with that lesson. I learned that long time ago, but that lesson allowed me to take one company, so take one idea, make it a company, and then go and acquire 4 more companies that had 4 different generals running 4 different directions and 4 different teams. So if you can identify and learn that skill set, then you can then go out and grow and grow and continue growing. And you'd be surprised on how much your organization can do. But it's a different responsibility. It's a different learning set. And it's definitely something I wouldn't recommend you do on your own either. Having a mentor at that point is going to be critical.
Yeah, that's a whole, I had a mentor for internet marketing. Now you have to get a whole other mentor who understands, what it takes to grow a company. And that type of mentor, you'd want to know that they've done it multiple times. They've done it for themselves multiple times. They've done it for other people as a consultant multiple times. So that's what you'd have to do. You just have to seek out that person that can help you scale up.
Yeah, completely agree. Man, this is powerful. Yeah, some great stuff. I didn't know how this was going to go, but I knew it was going to be good, but it's great actually. So I want to go ahead and finish it off with one last question. And what do you do on a daily basis? What are your daily habits for your success on a daily basis? How you start your day? I mean, what is it? Is it a certain type of coffee brand? Some type of bottle that has some special water in it? What is it that helps you succeed every day?
It's interesting because I'm naturally not a very structured person. I like to have freedom, and I still, even to this day, resist having to schedule something on a daily basis and do that thing on a daily basis. Because what if I don't want to do that thing on a daily basis? So I naturally resist that. That's why I'm not jumping on the podcast wagon, or I'm not doing these Periscope things every day on a certain time on the dot. I don't want to be that person that does that all the time. You know what I mean? But I still have to be productive.
Yeah.
And so I primarily keep in mind the number one goal for the day, and that has to be done no matter what. And if you see behind me, there's a glass whiteboard. It's yellow because there's sheets of paper, but it's actually glass. I could take away the sheets of paper and you can see through it.
Oh, that's cool.
It's kind of what they have in the movies with Silicon Valley, where they're writing on glass.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what it is.
Oh, that's pretty
cool. I listed out all my to-dos on that thing, all the things I have to do, and throughout my day I'm kind of just checking things off. And then I also star the things that are going to have the most impact on our bottom line, because as marketing officer, I'm in charge of basically making money. So I star the things that are going to have the most impact on our revenue. And then I just kind of start tackling it throughout the day and look at it and see what haven't I done. You're on the list, by the way. So after this call, you're going to...
Yeah, I was trying to see if I have a star or
not. No, you don't have a star.
Oh.
And unless there's something you haven't told me yet.
You never know.
And so, yeah, having a to-do list, one of the other huge things from a productivity standpoint for our company has been a project manager, where you're getting reminders and notices of things that you have to complete by a certain date and when they're due. And when somebody contributes to that, you get an email or notification, or somebody can, email you through the system It's like, hey, what's the status on this? And you're like, oh crap, I need to do that. Having systems that remind you of things that you're doing. And so we use Teamworks, or Teamwork, I think, as our project management system. And that's huge because then if I ever draw a blank where like, okay, what I need to do, I can just always log into Teamwork and look, okay, what's due, what's pressing, and what's going to have the most impact in our business that's on my plate. And then my goal is to kind of zero that out, try to get all that stuff done so that I can go, okay, it's all done. Other thing is in Gmail, I have my inbox set up so that it puts all the unread messages at the top. So all unread messages at the top. I've seen some people's email inboxes that are just disasters with like over like 5,000 unread messages, where stuff that they didn't open because they want to go back to it later gets buried, hundreds of emails deep. And so what I did, and my email inbox was like that too at one point. What I did was basically I was like, all right, screw it, I'm going to start from scratch. I zeroed out everything, meaning I set everything to red, no matter what it was. And then I started from that point on. And then my email becomes also kind of a default task list, where if there's something emails me something that's important that I need to take action on, I can leave it unread at the top. And it stays there unread at the top, and it keeps bugging me there at the top until I address it. So if I can't get to it now, I get to it later, but it's still there every time I log into my email, which for the most part is what a lot of us do all the time. We're constantly checking email. We look at what's there. So if the thing that's making you less productive, which is constantly checking your email and making you think you're productive, is now haunting you because there's this list of things that you need to address as you're unread, then actually that unproductive thing becomes productive, because no one likes to look at things that are unfinished at the top of their email inbox. So there's a few things that I do, that board there with my to-dos, the project manager. I turned Gmail into basically also a default task list. And every morning in terms of what I drink in the morning, I drink this. Basically, I have a soda stream and I just carbonate water, and I just drink about 5 liters of this a day. And so that keeps me hydrated. It also keeps me going to the bathroom every 5 minutes. But it's good. So I need to hydrate in the morning, and I need to constantly be drinking something, and it's, drinking water or carbonated water is better than drinking beer all day. So
yeah. Well, that's it. That's the secret to success right there. Those 4 things. Have a whiteboard behind you that tells you what to do, and always have a star next to my name. Project manager, having your email address cleaned up so that you don't have 5,000 unread messages. I'm the same way, by the way. I can't stand having an unread message. It bothers me. So I like to go through it. And if I see that it's a task I need to do, I unread it, and it goes back up there, and then I have to accomplish it. And then the water, obviously, the nourishment that you need for your body to maintain and being sharp. So man, powerful stuff. Ferny, I don't know what to say. I thank you in many ways for your time today and for sharing a little bit about you. I think you have to, I'm fascinated by your story because, I didn't go to college. I didn't go that route. Went in the military, got married early, I have my kids. So, everybody has their own journey. But what's really neat is that, we're all driven to do something. And if you listen to the inner voice, you listen to the passion you're pursuing, and you don't discount anything, you just continue achieving and pushing, you end up on a journey that you want to accomplish. And that's what you did. And I think it's fascinating. So it doesn't matter the level of education that you receive, if it's a little bit or a lot. It's great that you went to MIT, and it's fantastic. And the network that you have from MIT is absolutely amazing, which is great. But you're doing what you love to do, and it had nothing to do with your education. You did it. You have your way of doing it. You're influencing others, and so that's an inspiration for me and for others. And I want to thank you for your time today, because it was just fascinating. Just once again connecting with you.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate it. I mean, pleasure being here. I mean, I don't get an opportunity to share my story too much, so uh, I'm glad it was inspiring and useful for you guys.
Well, I appreciate it. And so until next time, guys, once again, Fernie, thank you. And you guys stay focused, stay driven, and stay strong.